If you're new to racquetball or squash 57, obviously the first thing that you need to know is how to hold this thing in your racket. All right, so we're going to do that now. So nice and straightforward. Just put it out in front of you, and then literally you handshake the racket. So imagine racket's out in front of you. I handshake the racket. When I do that, you can see from there that my forefinger is slightly ahead of everything else. Thumb comes around the side, and I've got my 3 fingers nice and close there. Okay? If I bend it back like that, if I turn my racket like that, you can see where the bottom of the actual grip is. So, what we then need to do, once we've got this nice and straightforward, another way of looking at this is you can see along the line of this racket, there's a V forming between your forefinger and your thumb. What you can do is you can, if you want to, just draw a little line in there with a pen, so that when you're taking your hand off your racket and you're getting ready to receive the serve or hit your shot, you look for that line and you just put your finger back on where it is. Okay? So we've got it there. Now that's not the only thing we need to do. We also need to think about our wrist. So for instance, I've got a nice grip here, everything's looking pretty good. Okay? But if my wrist is floppy like this, I'm not controlling the racket head at all. It's all over the place. So when I hit the ball, it's going to go everywhere. So what we need to do is we need to try and make sure that our wrist is firm. Okay? So here it is loose. All you need to do is just firm up your wrist like that. That's all it is. It doesn't have to be really tight. Just firm it up. Okay? So you now have control over the racket head. Okay? It's not wobbling everywhere. It's nice and firm. So how would you hold this thing, all right, which is really important. So, nice and straightforward, okay? It's like basically just shaking hands. So, imagine, here's the racket, it's out in front of you, all right? Just come across and you just shake hands with it. So I'll do it like this way. So here it is out in front of me, come across, and I just shake hands. By doing that, you can see that my forefinger has wrapped around the racket here. My thumb has come on the other side here, and I've got my 3 fingers just below it here. The actual base of the grip is nestling right at the bottom of my hand in my palm here, all right? So I've got quite a nice control over this. So what I then need to do, which is important, is you can see if my wrist is all loose like this, I don't have any control over the racket head. So look, it'll just be flopping all over the place if my wrist is loose. So what we do, imagine it's all loose like this, so what we do is I just, okay, firm up my wrist. So my wrist then goes firm, okay? So sometimes people call this like a cocked wrist, but I like to think of it as a firm wrist, because I don't want to do it too hard. I'm just going to make sure that it's nice and firm, okay? And then I've got control over my racket head. It's not flopping around everywhere, it's nice and firm. So when I hit the ball, okay, the contact is firm. Now, if I'm actually going to be hitting that ball, what I tend to do beforehand, a lot of the old racquetballs, rackets have this little sort of a loop on the end of it. So what I tend to do with mine is I just put it over my wrist and keep it nice and firm, so that if, for instance, you hit a ball and it comes out of your hand, the racket comes out of your hand, it's not going to do any damage because literally it's on your wrist. So I always put that on. So have a go, try the different practices, which you'll see in a moment, and see how you get on.